Welcome back to the Suck It Up podcast with Mike Papakilo and Uncle Bugatti, the most based podcast on the internet.
Swing.
We need to get a soundboard.
I desperately want a soundboard. And I'm sure we could probably get one that's programmed on the keys.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to look that up tonight. So,
well, I tried to set up the live stream through OBS and whatever live stream service Revenge of the Sis does, because you can basically set up monetization that way, because there's a number of our subscribers on the actual Mike Papakilo YouTube channel that are requesting us different outlets to send us money because they don't want YouTube to have our money, and Patreon is also kind of lame.
Gay.
But it's just a lot of time to invest. Like, I had a sick day yesterday where I didn't do anything other than edit videos, and it took me about an hour to figure out OBS, and I don't really have a setup for my computer, and I don't really have a mouse per se, so it's kind of
You have a mouse?
kind of a pain in the ass. Now I've used a trackpad to edit videos for the last 5 years.
Ooh, you need a desk.
Yep.
More light in your house,
Mm-hmm.
and probably like a roll-around chair.
Yep. I have none of those things. When I moved from college, my dad just like threw out half my shit. Don't know where it is. I had like 5 pillows. I have 1. I had like 3 rolly chairs. I have none. I don't know where they went.
You know, I had a design project my freshman year of college, and it was a rolly chair that folded up. And because everyone throws their goddamn rolly chairs out,
This is true.
you want a free, like, cheap office rolly chair, go to a dumpster when everyone leaves college and for the spring, summertime. Everyone, because if you move out of the dorms, like, well, I don't need this rolly chair. But that is a true fact of life. No, that ancient keyboard over there is actually a MIDI keyboard, which is, it's like I can't remember exactly what MIDI is, but it's kind of a format for all musical instruments to talk to each other. And I could get a program on that I could hit different keys and just label them what it is.
That would be pretty neat.
And that would be cheaper than getting, because those trackpads are like maybe $200 at the minimum.
Yeah, I'm not about that life. Well,
they're for
especially
DJs.
since none of our online entertainment that we provide pulls any sort of income at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a DJ, so I'm not going to use it for anything.
Right.
It would literally just to have like swing. That's number 1, of course.
Yeah.
Got to get that stuff in there. I mean, there's so many good sound effects that, and you could download them, and they could be all open source, so we'd be covered.
Right.
Or just record them. We could record them ourselves.
This is true. It's just the bandwidth and the cash flow isn't there to do that kind of stuff. This is just something we do kind of for fun. For now. Hopefully we can monetize this eventually, but we just, especially trying to find an outlet to upload all of our all of our podcasts to. Just like Stitcher sucks. I try to do that. YouTube is the only thing I know how to use, and honestly, putting these memes together is awesome. It's just a fun thing to do when I don't want to do anything else. The other outlet is SoundCloud, and all those things require money, and I don't want to put money into something that I'm not getting money out of. So it's kind of hard to get started.
As he shoots USPSA.
Fair enough.
I mean, you're pretty good. You'll get some money out of it sooner, probably way sooner than I ever will. But right now, it's kind of just going out. It's not really coming in.
Yeah, depending on how many bullets we get this year, it's mostly been going out. And I mean, the whole YouTube thing, I wouldn't be doing YouTube unless I loved it. Like, I don't love putting together podcasts to put on streaming services, because all that embedded URL shit, I don't care. RSS feeds, it does not excite me to do any of that work. The streamlined nature of YouTube is awesome, but their CEO is a soccer mom with upspeak, and I hate her. And she hates freedom. So
Whom?
The CEO of YouTube.
Oh, I think I know her name.
She's some chick that like slept with the original guys who formed YouTube, and she was one of the first 16 people on YouTube, and now she's the CEO.
Awesome.
Yeah. She's not great. Her interview with 60 Minutes or whatever just showed how much of an ignorant soccer mom she is and how insulated she is from the real world.
If you're in that level of management, I doubt you're doing anything.
No, they're not. They don't do a goddamn thing.
Like, well, they're making big decisions. Like, well, I could make big decisions right now for you, right? Give me a stack of things and I'll give you a bunch of decisions. And guess what? Just like the stock market, my random guesses will probably be on par with, people that go to school and measure the stock market so closely because it is pretty random.
Yeah, when a social change can change the stock market and turn it on its head, it's just gambling. I mean, you can play the stock market and try and make educated guesses and play it in the long run and make money, but short term, it's just guessing.
The only real way to make a decent amount of money is to diversify. But I say we buy Boeing stock because there's so many things going, well, but we should have bought it before Iran came out and said that they shot that fucker down, because there was all the speculation that maybe it was another
737 failure mode.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it was an older one. But even early on, they're like, well, these planes can fly with one engine and a bird wouldn't just make it explode. There was no emergency broadcasting. They bulldozed the site. It exploded at 8,000 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, that's. But I mean, obviously now, ex post facto, it was shot down by a missile defense system. But
yep.
Let's just hope everyone cools the fuck down. I doubt it. Money makes too much. Or I'm sorry, war. If I repeat myself, war makes too much money for certain people.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm not a fan of all these. It's like the way I see it, it's like battered wife syndrome. All these veterans that have already gotten out of the military and are like doing their weekend warrior bullshit just to make a little money on the side are like, you need to support our vets in this time of need. Like, no, fuck face. I'm not pro-war. Therefore, I don't support the vets. They signed up for this. They don't want to do it either. Fuck you.
I think there's a certain sense of I want to go and do something. I want to go and get shot at and shoot at people, and it's like it's the ultimate test of not even manliness, just like, oh, I would survive and you wouldn't, and
right.
Here's the test. Here's the forge, the crucible, so to say.
Right.
But they do. I mean, you sign up for the military, you got a lot of bullshit to go through. And then they just keep pumping you full of, it's worth it, it's worth it, it's worth it. America, 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 which, by the way, yay, America. But we haven't really defended America. I mean, I sent you that picture, and it was like, why did Iran found itself so close to all of our bases? and there's just like 30 bases surrounding all the borders of Iran.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe we should, monetarily, let's just not have bases over there. Let them fucking figure it out. I don't know what we're protecting. I guess.
I know exactly what we're protecting.
Yeah, I do
we're,
too.
We're protecting our assets. It's about economy and making money. It's not about defending freedom. It's a joke.
That makes me upset. Like Marine stories of Marines guarding poppy fields.
Videotapes of said Marines guarding said poppy fields.
Like, what's going on here? And I mean, directly south of us, huge amounts of fentanyl are getting shipped in from China and brought across the border.
Mm-hmm.
And we have other problems to deal with, I think.
Domestically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when's the last war that? I mean,
World War II, which was staged.
Even still, but we were attacked, but
there were landings in Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah.
And that was it. After that, we steamrolled the rest of the world and established ourselves as the world police.
Why did we go after the Germans, though?
World police.
The Zimmerman letters?
We didn't want Soviet Russia owning Europe.
That was World War I. Well, sorry. The Zimmerman letter was a World War I reference. Russia owning Europe is a lifelong endeavor. As long as there'll be Russia, there'll be someone to hate them.
Right.
Us.
Yeah, that was the only reason we got involved with Germany is, I mean, if you look at Basically, World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam, the war in Afghanistan, and the proxy wars we're fighting now. If you polled any part of the United States, we would say we wouldn't want to go to war. World War One, we definitely didn't want to go to war. Why we went to war is kind of the same reason we went to war in World War Two. Is we saw an opportunity to start making bases in Europe, especially in World War Two, because East-West Germany thing. Because the Soviets were our allies, but they weren't really our allies. We were trying to keep our control of Europe that we had founded in the League of Nations and all that bullshit from World War One. That was the only reason we got involved. Before both World War One and World War Two, like in 1938, 39, we were selling munitions to Britain, Germany, Russia, Italy, all the proxy nations in Egypt. We were selling shit to Japan. We were selling shit to China. And World War One was the same way. We sold to everyone. We were making money off both sides of the war before both wars. And the only reason we got in is because, the bad guy, i.e., Russia, or in World War One, Great Britain could get more influence over Europe than we could. Because even at World War One, we were friends with Great Britain because not 100 years ago were we fighting them out of our ports.
Yeah,
that wasn't many generations ago.
absolutely. And and it's funny because we entered the war when the Bolsheviks were in power. So that's kind of, or was it like right at that time?
It was all about right at the time. I think it was the end of 1917. I'm gonna look it up.
Because we weren't in the war for that long.
We were like 6 months, maybe.
Yeah, all the pattern 14 rifles were converted to 30-06. Were initially in 303 British to send to the British because we were selling them to the British.
Yep. And we're also making Remington, and one other company was making Nagant rifles for the Russians.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
It's just odd to me that the Federal Reserve Act goes into effect in the 1912-ish, maybe 1913, 1912, I think.
Yeah, the Bolshevik Revolution started in March of 17.
So we came in just either a little before or a little after. Which is hilarious to me that they were involved in this war as
and we started within a month of that happening, April of 17.
You can't.
That is some beautiful timing, my friend.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Uncle Sam was released in that month. The I Want You for the U.S. Army.
Hell yeah! I saw some cool posters at the World War I Museum, but it was a lot of it was like, if I was a Marine, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool because it shows everyone is super badass, but it also was straight propaganda. Like one of them was a picture of like some dude dropping a magazine and walking with his, pulling his sleeves back. He's gonna get in a fight, and the magazine says Huns kill women and children, and then the title says not on a Marine's watch.
I have seen that,
and I mean, like, who didn't kill women and children? Jesus Christ!
Right.
That's the best part is it's all who's painting the brush of the history's written by the winners
and Hitler did nothing wrong. That's a joke.
That is definitely a joke. That's what did you say today? Because I wanted you to shave my hair, and you're like, just join the skinhead gang because he's got a bald head, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm down with the clown for that kind of shit. But yeah, so yes,
as far back as 1900 and maybe even before that. Which before that we're fighting frontier wars for the Manifest Destiny, so that doesn't really relate to what we're seeing today. But definitely World War One and all the wars after that. The United States population did not want to be in wars, but the government in its infinite wisdom did whatever it wanted and got us into warfare.
I don't know, dude. I bet if you polled Americans after Pearl Harbor, I bet a lot of them wanted to go to war with Japan. I bet a ton of people signed up right after they heard. Same thing with whatchamacallit, 9/11. It's the perfect cover.
Well, that is true. That's a good point because right after Pearl Harbor, I mean, that gives the media all the power to say what they want. And I mean, if you just look at the setup of Pearl Harbor, I mean, we set ourselves up to basically get steamrolled. I mean, we knew we had all the intelligence of that armada heading our way, if you want to call it that, the naval fleet of Japan, and we docked all of our boats in a small bottleneck because tactics.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nuts. It's nuts to think that it's not that nuts. It's like, look, guess what? Now we don't really have to get Congress to pass, because it should be pretty difficult. Fucking, I mean, think about it. You make war, you declare war. You're now making murder legal.
Yep.
Right? So,
international murder.
International murder with rules. That's
Somehow,
the weirdest part
yeah.
to me is, like, you look at, like, Vietnam, and you're like, okay, that's what I think war of. When I think of war, I think of, like, Vietnam, where it's just, and, a lot of World War II, especially with the Japanese, because those fuckers fought hard.
Yeah, they did some really fucked up shit to our boys in the Pacific, too.
Yeah, I mean...
Was the Bataan Death March and everything
Yeah.
leading up to that? Yeah.
And, I mean, but that's what I think of as a war. It's just weird to me. You look at, like, 1800s kind of warfare when there's, you don't shoot an officer, and it's like, it's fucking war.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not a game of chess unless there's some kind of puppet masters going on. And, I gotta say, when's the last time we've defended this country? Because we didn't defend Pearl Harbor. We didn't defend 9/11 attacks. I don't even know how they would have defended 9/11 attacks.
Well, considering ever since the 80s, every major military base, which most of them are near big cities like New York, have pilots on standby to scramble if anything goes wrong. I mean, we make it seem like it wasn't until 9/11 that we had all these security defenses and all this contingency set up in this nation. We had plenty of that already. Like, the Cold War set most of that up. We had missile defense systems to shoot down ICBMs way before 9/11. We had missile defense systems to shoot down enemy planes way before 9/11. And we had F-16s that were ready to scramble at a moment's notice way before 9/11. That whole thing is just a farce. The more you read into it, the more you just distrust everything the government has ever done.
Well, the scary thing to me is that in 2010 it came out that the Gulf of Tonkin was staged. That's what got us into Vietnam. They did it once. And probably, look at the Zimmerman letter. How do you know that was... How did that get out to the press?
Right.
I just don't... I don't understand. There's someone who's making an absurd amount of money off of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And, then we just send the poor to go die for it. And it's I mean, if you came here and attacked us, I would fight tooth and nail. That's like the North Vietnamese, like, fuck communism, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel pretty fucking bad for, 58,000 people died over there that probably didn't want to, they're just like, hey, I want to go to college. It's like, nope, you're getting drafted.
Right.
So that sucks. Besides all that, if that was my country and you came into it, I'd fucking murder all of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I get their sentiment, and I get we were trying to stop communism, but it's like, dude. And it was on a false flag that we entered, and it just grew. And then even it's known that LBJ knew there wasn't really an option to win this war. It wasn't a war like World War II,
No.
There wasn't a Hitler to take down.
Well, you didn't have a figurehead to take down. You didn't
maybe Ho Chi Minh, but it wasn't.
You didn't have uniformed soldiers to take down. You're fighting a civilian army. Like, it was not a uniform. The North Vietnamese and the NVA wasn't an established military force. Like, yeah, they had some artillery, and yeah, they had some generals and commanders, but it's not like a World War II situation, which was basically the last war of uniformed soldiers fighting uniformed soldiers, I think.
That's what scares me about, like, we've been doing is all this guerrilla / IED weird insurgency fighting.
Mm-hmm.
In the Middle East and Vietnam, even the North Korea. I don't know much about the Korean War, but I would say that was a uniformed.
It was
Chinese backed.
Yeah, it was kind of a Chinese backed uniformed military, but it was It was also very, very interesting type of warfare because it was not it wasn't European field. It wasn't anything we'd seen like in the Pacific with naval battles. It was like very mountainous and cold. It was like fighting in the Alps, like something we'd never done.
Yeah, that's the thing with North Korea, and if we ever got in a war with them, which let's not, let's all agree not to do that. That would be some shitty terrain to fight in.
Yeah.
Just saying. Not saying the desert's any better, but just mountains, It's pretty crazy. But
all I know is I know a lot of infantry dudes that went over to South Korea to do winter training, and in the northern portions of South Korea, they said it sucked. So I can't imagine going further north into more mountainous territory that would get any better.
Well, there you go. But you listen to someone like Jacob Hornberger. I was talking to you about this because, ideally, I think you're like, oh, we already give so much out in welfare and XYZ. I think we shouldn't have as many, if any, immigrants into this country that aren't like vetted. It's like Canada, like Canadian stuff. That's funny that I saw, there's all these World War III draft memes and people like, oh, you want to come to Canada? Well, you have to have a certain amount of money in your bank. You have to have a certain reason to come up here. It could take 10 years to get into Canada as a citizen. It's not like the 60s where people just jetted up there. I don't know when they got so, but their immigration laws are pretty intense.
Yep.
Now, granted, there's less people there than in the whole state of California, but why can't I don't understand how Canada can stand on this leg of like, oh, we're giant pussies and whatever, but we also have pretty strict immigration reform.
I think they're especially with the age of Justin Trudeau and his growing welfare state. I think they're seeing that the welfare state is being inflated and they don't have the resources to support what they already have. Try getting on a heart list for a hospital in Canada. You're gonna die. Like there's no hope for you. There's people coming to the United States from Canada to get heart transplants and even just heart surgery because the wait list is so long.
It's weird, but I think if you had a true libertarian, very small government where we had, you want a good you want an up-to-date advanced military to defend yourself, but we haven't defended.
We haven't defended shit in almost 100 years.
And no, we haven't really. We broke off from England, then they came back and we fought them
again.
And then we kind of ran over the natives. Which
as our Christian God intended.
That's manifest destiny.
Judeo-Christian values, murder the natives.
Okay, folks, Judeo-Christian values. We got to keep them together.
I was born in L.A. with rich parents, and I know exactly what you're going through.
100% Ashkenazi. I thought I was going to be at least a higher percentage than Elizabeth Warren was at Native American, but I'm 100% Ashkenazi, folks.
I definitely don't shave half my face with electric razor because weird voodoo rituals.
But first, what's the gold?
Why are you afraid of a 5'6" Jew?
Birch gold. All right.
I'm a mug salesman.
Precious metals. I diversify, and the only ones I trust to give me the most money are birch gold. But what about the Spanish-American War? That was more with Spain backing Mexicans, wasn't it? And was it?
We wanted Cuba.
Oh yeah, and we didn't get it.
Nope.
So then, wow, we haven't really been on the defense in a while.
So the only thing that I could see being a worthwhile offense would be us.
Canada.
I was gonna go south. I was gonna go Mexico because they are sending their latest and greatest to come kill us via whatever cartel and gangs that they have ready, and their government is pretty much in shambles. And the cartel runs everything, and the citizens basically live in fear of the cartel. There's been back when Vice News didn't completely suck, they covered a lot of the small villages that were trying to fight the cartel, and they were trying to get armament to do so, like, Kalashnikov rifles, this, that, and the other. And the beauty and wisdom of the Mexican government found out about it and came and took them because guns are illegal in Mexico.
Yeah.
So try and figure out that logic.
If you want to know what's going on in the world of the cartel, there's a good Joe Rogan with, I think his name's Ed Caldera. He was a police officer and ended up, he's been in some legitimate
shit. Dick in dirt shit.
Yeah, he trains like pretty high up bodyguards and stuff for like real shit hits the fan situations. Because he's been on Joe's podcast twice and talks about his life and just the crazy shit that's going on in Mexico right now. And I wouldn't want to fuck with the cartel. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
But like that's a problem right there.
There's a giant problem at our border.
Yeah.
And no one seems to think it's a problem.
No, and it's not, and this is the worst part. It's not Mexicans, okay?
Well, it's not Mexican citizens.
No, it's not literal. It's not like a raid thing. It's what's coming out of the country of Mexico.
Yep.
And it's xenophobic. I'm like, I'm sorry. Wasn't there 25,000 people murdered last year because of cartel related stuff? It's not as much as overdoses, which we could almost blame on them also.
Right. But
not, personal choice and whatnot, but fentanyl, people aren't, I think the overdose rate in the last 10 years is like quadrupled because of fentanyl. And it's not just, bad heroin anymore. It's ultra super heroin. And
that has a lot to do with the dying culture in the United States too. It's like trying to blame the gun for a murder. You can't blame the fentanyl for taking somebody's life, but the fact that the influence of a cartel that is not a sovereign nation, it's definitely not a positive group of people. The availability of firearms has never been a problem in the United States, but the availability of illegal drugs seems to be a different issue. I will never blame a drug for killing someone because I think we have a much bigger problem in the United States that ties to drug abuse. There's a huge mental health issue, and the fact that we have technology that helps us communicate better than ever before, and it doesn't seem like any of us know how to communicate anymore. I think that our society is breaking down due to technology rather than coming together like we could. But as far as the availability of drugs, the availability of legal drugs is never a good thing, which the availability of drugs, period, is never really a good thing, prescription or otherwise, in my opinion.
No, but there's not really much you can do to stop it. I think
you can't declare war on drugs because then the CIA will just figure out how to make money off of it.
Yeah, and then civil asset forfeiture. When there's a problem in the free market, a company arises, and then when the problem's gone, they kind of, if that company didn't try and change, it fizzles out.
Yep.
The problem with government is when the problem's gone,
they create another problem to solve.
That industry is still there, and when there's something as profitable as the war on drugs, they're going to keep going at it. Why would they stop that? Why would they stop? Look how many people are employed by like the DEA, just the DEA, and
there's a lot of government agencies that people don't know exist that have hundreds of thousands of workers.
And I'm sure your average DEA guy is going into work thinking he's making a difference. And the thing is, yeah, maybe
fuck you, Stan. You're not making a difference.
Maybe they're even, we caught a narco sub. You caught one, right?
It took 30,000 of you fuckers to catch one.
Yeah, and you're
not efficient.
There's drugs inside of Supermax prisons. Okay, it's not
among other things.
Yeah, right. And that's what makes me the most angry is when I tell people, I think you should just legalize all drugs. You should decriminalize them.
Yep.
Just fucking stay out of it because
you no longer have a market.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's no longer cool to do drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's just Johnny Appleseed over here making his own fentanyl, and I think the free market would definitely take care of that. But what this guy is saying, this Calderon or whatever his name was,
Joe Rogan guy.
Yeah, he was saying that declaring the cartels as a terrorist organization would definitely help, because they're like, well, because technically terrorism textbook is violence in the political nature,
right?
And I can't remember. He explained why Trump didn't go through with it, which, fuck you, Trump. But
fuck you, daddy.
He said that it's like, okay, well, they're not technically terrorists. Like, well, they're paying off a lot of politicians, and a lot of what they're doing, like if one politician comes in that's going to hurt their business, they're going to stop it.
Right.
And I mean, they're so large. I hate changing the definition of things, but I don't think that that's really twisting the idea of what terrorism is, because you ask, I mean, people's down there will lose a son or a daughter or anyone. They're just gone, and they'll dissolve their bodies in coke, and it's gone. They'll never find them ever again.
Well, not to mention the human trafficking that the cartel does. It's not like the only thing they do is terrorize towns, get money, sell drugs, and shoot people. Like, they have human trafficking that happens a lot, especially with the people trying to flee to the United States. Whatever the story of the coyotes, it happens every day. Like, they're trafficking human beings, and that alone should be enough to be considered. You're ensuing terror onto a populace. That should be enough to be a terrorist.
I mean, you have, because all the laws we have for something like them would be more like mob related stuff. And what we were successful in taking down, like someone like Pablo Escobar, was because it was one giant organization. Well, now there's 12, 14. Every area has its own huge power. They're all fighting each other, and I mean, they're just ruthless, and it's super terrifying to think about what is going on. I mean, shit, if you go to San Diego, you're right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right there, and it's just nuts to me that that's like, okay, oh, Iran. Well, last I checked, Iran doesn't have any ICBMs. If we pulled out and gave it, 30 years, I bet they'd stop fucking with us.
Well, they'd have no reason to, because we wouldn't be fucking with them.
It's like, I think people are like, well, they're attacking our base. I'm like, well, if you put a base in a country and they say, yeah, you can have an embassy or you can have a base, that's one thing. But it kind of looks like we're surrounding them, and it kind of looks like we're occupying, And
what happens when you put a bear and corner it?
Yeah,
the bear gets angry. Well, I mean, just put it this way. Neither of us agree with how Iran runs its nation. We don't agree with Sharia law. We don't agree with basically abusing a populace because of your Sharia law. I mean, that between them and Pakistan, I don't know which is worse, honor killings and such. But it's also their sovereign nation for their people to figure out, right? Who are we to say that we have this divine justice to go change the world? I mean, look what our government does on a monthly basis, much less over the last 20 years. We've been a part of almost every coup in South America. We've been involved in several scandals to try to take rights away from our own people. The U.S. government is a terrorist organization in and of itself. It's a huge international terror organization if you break it down to the actual definition. I mean, we are no better than any mujahideen that we paid to fight the Russians, Taliban group, whatever. We just have more money and go about it a different way.
And that makes me upset that, like, America's awesome. A lot of Americans are awesome. The principles that, the constitutional principles that this country is founded on, the Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah. Whatever those are.
The freedom, the opportunity, just
capitalism rocks.
I love most of America, except it's fucking pretty much
everyone who
foreign and domestic policy.
everyone who is involved with foreign and domestic policy, and most people that live in cities. Those are my two least favorite things about the United States.
And we talked about this before, like where if you live in a city, like you're more liberal, obviously, but it's because of the fact that like I'm in an apartment complex right now. If I play my music too loud, someone's gonna bitch about it, and then I say, well, show me the rule. And there's not going to be a rule until one is made. Hey, now
Right.
your music's got to be down. If you live far, I mean, it is very much, politics right now is very much a rural versus urban thing, especially with guns. Because, out in Alaska, like, you literally need a gun.
Yeah.
Like, on a constant basis. Like, you can say, hey, here's XYZ examples. Now, you could say, oh, you don't need a gun.
We have bear spray.
For-
yeah, okay. Let me know how that works.
For day-to-day aspects. I mean, I'm saying taking out human like malevolence. I'm talking about like bear attacks and moose attacks. Like those fuckers are huge. They're
Yeah.
way bigger than elk, and they're so tall and skinny legs. They can run in like 6 feet of snow at like 10, 15 mile an hour, and they're very aggressive.
Yeah.
So you have like a literal like, oh, I'm going to go out. I need to take a gun with me. Then you take into account human factors, and then you put yourself in the city, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Now you're just surrounded by assholes.
There's an income tax in New York City. You know that?
An income tax city level.
City level income tax in New York City.
Jesus Christ.
They're going to run everyone out of there, but
One can only hope.
That's rural versus urban, but I mean, we have politicians that they make maybe $120,000 a year. They've been in Congress for 30 years, right? So what's that? $3 million? Call it $4 million over 30 years, and their net worth is probably in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, hundreds of millions.
You're like, where'd that come from? Because I don't think compounding interest would get you up to $100,000,
No.
$100 million. But taking money here and there and putting your son on the board of XYZ, and that's where, and you're like, okay, think about this. Even in the free market, there's waste at the top. A lot of our company we work for, I think it's very top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Very top heavy. A lot of oversight of people not really doing anything.
Not doing much of anything at all.
Exactly. And
they're still profitable. The United States government,
they're
not profitable.
They're still profitable. And, there's clean sweeps when shit goes wrong. I think there's a story at our company where there's an HR incident where I think someone was being discriminated against or made fun of or something. They went to HR several times and documented it, and they didn't do anything. And then they called like maybe the state board of something and said, hey, this is what's going on. And they fucking took out everyone. Everyone in HR, like up to, I think it was like 4 years ago. But I mean, some of the people that work at our company have a no fire clause. They just sit at home. But there's still waste, and that's just a human, like, it's Price's law. Square it or your employees do half the work. But then you go to government where no bad program is cut, and it gets more money every year, and it's people scratching each other's backs, and it's all this. It's terrible. It's the pork barrel, and we have not gotten rid of it, and it pisses me off that two aspects here. A, you see the waste that's going on, or you see like if you demand, I want guns taken away. I'm like, all right, there's like 500,000 individual laws, maybe 50,000 laws involving firearms. 50,000. One more is going to do it.
Yeah, right.
One more is going to do it. And that's just ignoring statistics. That's just
Ignoring facts and data.
exactly. But you have all this excess and they're spending, and you're like, oh, open borders. Fuck you. We don't have any money. And then on the other aspect is like, oh, Donald Trump has too much power. Oh, but when Obama was doing it, it's totally cool. And I'm hating people right now because it's like, oh, Trump's the best or Trump's the worst. And then you flip it, 4 years ago when it was Obama, and it's the exact opposite. Like, Obama sucks, and
Right.
it sucks. They all suck. Okay.
That's the down and dirty of it all is they all suck. And that's the thing with corporations. I've worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies now. Companies are starting to run themselves like the government because they realize that no matter how many times they rebudget themselves, if you use up your budget, you that basically gives you the excuse to ask for more, right? And that's
absolutely.
It's just continuous growth. So what the government does is they get a budget every year, and if they don't use it up, they get restricted because you didn't use all your budget. We know for the next fiscal year you don't need that much money. So what they do is they waste it. They create more jobs, they waste more money, and now they can budget for more money because they can justify the growth. And every year it's just chiseling away more and more money from the taxpayers when the ratio of people actually paying taxes to those who are not is getting lower and lower. Ratio-wise, we're gonna be fucked very, very soon.
I think historically, anytime you tax the middle class too much is when shit really hits the fan.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think with technology and the purified liquid retard that's flowing through the veins of Americans right now, it could happen for other reasons. But I mean, we are in such a weird point of time. I mean, we are the future. We're in the future right now. Like, we're in
synergy.
Yes. But speaking of waste, my uncle was talking. I was talking to my uncle about when to replace a pistol barrel. And he said, well, the Army manual used to say for competition for every 5,000 rounds for a 45 caliber handgun. And so that was the standard for a long time, every 5,000 rounds. And then one time somebody found out that was decided because that's what was allotted in the budget. So it was literally just a decision made by someone being like, hey, we could get new barrels every 5,000 rounds.
Right.
And hey, it sounds cool.
That's the problem I have with modern Americans is a majority of us have smartphones. Majority of us have the capacity to find out why things happen. But for whatever reason, we just want to kowtow to daddy authority of the government and not ask the question, well, why are we doing this? What reason do we have to do this? Which we had talked about it earlier in the podcast, that there are relevant facts and data that a certain group or two within the Alphabet Boys keep on crime statistics. And based on those crime statistics, the firearms that people are trying to ban are not the firearms that are committing the most crimes. So even if you could correlate those two, which you can't, logically it doesn't make sense, to ban a firearm, they're going after the wrong type. Really, if you want to go after a weapon, you should ban blunt objects and knives, not assault rifles, as it were, because, well, they were actually already banned in 1986 thanks to Ronald Reagan, the white knight savior of the conservative party.
The old gibber.
The Hughes Amendment.
Call him the old taker.
The old douchebag. But no, they're all the basis. I mean, if we could write a synopsis for this podcast, is all politicians are corrupt. The ones who are not, Kennedy, get killed or pushed out of office. And the
Kennedy that kind of slack, but go ahead.
The government is not your daddy. Get your own job. What do you mean? Don't give Kennedy that kind of slack? I mean, he wasn't a great guy. Don't get me wrong.
Because he was trying to end corruption.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
he didn't want the CIA to run the government anymore.
That's very true. Okay, so he wasn't terrible. I think anyone with a good heart is phased out.
Just the fact that he cheated on his wife and drugs and stuff. I mean, he wasn't a great person. Don't get me wrong.
That I still think he did some kind of shitty stuff, but I would have to go back and reaffirm why I think that. Probably because he was just more liberal than I was. Oh, you don't agree with my extremely specific ultra left policy? Fuck you. They're gonna kill each other with infighting. But I mean, it's a complete shit show. There's people making the policies are making money by passing laws to spend more and to encroach on our liberties, and they're doing it in just the gayest ways possible. It's always appealing to emotion. There's never any did you watch that Revenge of the Sis talking about how Elizabeth Warren said that she would read off all of the names of murdered trans people in the Rose Garden every year she was president? And she's like, because of this epidemic. And you're like, oh, epidemic.
Of
There must be something crazy going on.
0.0001% of the population.
Well, what it ended up being was 26, their numbers, a very far left. I can't remember who came up with it, but 26 transsexuals were murdered in the last year. So you're like, okay, out of all the people that identify as transsexual, that's 1.9 out of 100,000 people, right? That's the murder rate for transsexuals in their own category. The standard murder rate for the average American is 4.8, right? 4.8 out of 100,000. That means that you're safer as a transsexual. And on top of that, that's not including the fact that we're not 100% sure that they were killed specifically for the fact that they were transsexual. So you're saying it's epidemic, which is 26 people, which I bet mosquitoes killed more people than...
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they kill tons of people, but...
Lyme disease.
Lyme disease.
That's what they're talking about. 0.00001% of the population.
Exactly. And she's like, oh, it's an epidemic. Like, how delusional are you to think that this is an issue? And then you look at like overdoses, and that's up a lot. I can't remember what that is exactly as far as death rate goes, because it is an incredible. And I just... why is no one, even fucking Republicans do this shit? I feel like Republicans are more prone to pull the Jesus stuff, just historically, because it's a conservative mindset, and you kind of pick your party. You pick your
Drug
team
overdose deaths drop in U.S. for first time since 1990 is a New York Times headline. It says that in 2018. Overdose deaths in 2018, more than 68,000. It exceeded the national death for car crashes, but compared to per capita of the 90s, we're doing better.
What about, like people on their phones in the cars? That's probably more dangerous than firearms.
Oh, way more dangerous.
I don't know about technically handguns, because I hate relating statistics the way that ultra lefty people are pro gun, but the we're safer without tools to defend ourselves people. Those people don't know the difference between a pistol and a rifle, and I don't know how. I explained that to my mom one time. I was like, she's like, well, they shoot faster, don't they? Not as an argument, just as a general question. I'm like, well, it's as fast as you can pull the trigger. My trigger on my pistol right now is nicer than both my AR triggers.
Mm-hmm.
The Geisley's pretty nice, but
it's okay.
I don't like flat triggers anymore, and all my guns have them.
Mistakes were made.
But they look pretty sweet, though.
Also, if you actually break down the argument, one well-placed shot beats out shooting full auto at a crowd of people.
Absolutely. But
let's not break this down too far.
Just in the purest sense, I said it's as fast as you can pull a trigger. So when old MPK over here picks up a rifle and shoots it, sounds like a machine gun. I can't do that because I don't have the muscle memory and probably weird fast twitch muscle fibers and tendons that
I've developed over years of shooting.
As fast as humanly possible. And so I can shoot my pistol as fast as an AR. Or when they're talking about Parkland, and that cop only had a pistol, and he's like, well, AR rounds are going almost twice as fast. I'm like, okay, you've sat behind me on a certain sunny day when the sun was pointing a certain direction, and we were pointing our handgun with it was probably 147 grain bullets.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going about 1050, 1000.
Usually the hot ones come around 1,000 feet per second out of a 4.5-inch barrel.
So there you go.
Factory loaded.
We'll call it 1,000. And with the right sun angle behind us at 100 yards, you could just barely see that bullet probably about 70 yards. It'd go out about 70 yards, then you'd catch it, kind of that vapor trail.
Mm.
You can just barely see it, like whoom, and it's kind of weird, but you can kind of see it.
Within
right?
a second, it's at 100 yards.
Yes, exactly. So,
well, actually, let's do the math. You go on. I'm going to do the math.
In close quarters, these people think that an AR bullet is deadlier because it is traveling faster. And it's like, but that bullet is 55 grains. I'm shooting a bullet that's almost 3 times as much weight, and it's going half the speed, so it has more energy, but that's not the point. You don't see bullets.
So
okay?
if we are thinking that given gravity and wind and resistance in air
chakras are the same,
we're going to go ahead and say about 900 feet per second average. It's closer to 850 really, but 900 feet per second average across that trajectory. It takes 0.3 seconds for that bullet to reach the target out of a pistol.
Yeah.
And that's a slow 9mm bullet. NATO specs like 1200, 1250 feet per second.
How fast is a blink?
A blink?
I said the word blink as I was blinking, and then he looked at me with his eyes and said, a blink? And then he also blinked. It was funny. For those of you that can't see what's going on here.
How fast is a blink? Scientists shown that average person blinks, blah, blah. That doesn't, you're not helping. How fast is a blink? 1/10 of a second.
Okay.
So 3 blinks, if you blink as fast as you can, that's 3 blinks in the time that takes a mere 9mm bullet to go 100 yards.
It's and you know, that's
And
one
that's
complete blink.
If you're thinking, okay, 5.56, if it maintains 2,900 feet per second over that 100 yards, that's 1 blink.
Yeah.
So you have the difference between 3 of your fastest blinks and 1 fast blink. That's no time at all.
100 yards.
That's no time at all.
At 100 yards.
We're talking 7 yards now.
Yeah, and we're talking close quarters when everything's completely disorienting. Maybe just because of the chaos of a firefight, you might see a bullet. You could. You don't know.
Doubt it.
Probably fucking not. You might see a ricochet. You might see shrapnel, or you might see.
You're lucky to see the
powder.
You're lucky to see the brass coming out of your gun when you're in a firefight.
Yeah, I mean, people say it either slows down, or speeds up, and your perception is real fucking weird. And people will forget how many shots they shot. They're like, "Yeah, I shot 3 times, guaranteed." And the
Empties a magazine.
Then the video is them shooting 15 rounds, and they're like, "I didn't think I shot that much."
Right. So memories are flawed. Firefights are chaos, and the fact that we've already spent 5 minutes debating this, where people at the highest level haven't debated it for 30 seconds, really shows you who's running this country.
Their mind's already made up. I mean, my mind's made up about it, but I have reason to. I said, "Here's science."
Yeah, here's logos.
here's Navy SEALs talking about them in firefights and what it's like. And
well, we've also talked to a number of people that have been in the military. How many politicians have really known people in the military that have been in the shit and not just jack off colonels and generals that make decisions that they don't know anything about?
They say the California, like San Francisco elites, I can't remember who they polled, but they said that like 1% of those people know people who smoke, right? So how far are you away from blue collar that you don't know anyone that smokes? Like,
I mean, one of the textbook definitions, which we talked about this earlier, funny enough, of people who are in the lower middle class or lower are alcohol, cigarettes, lottery tickets, and taking trips to a gas station to get all 4 of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, how many San Francisco elitists do you see going to a 7-Eleven to get a scratch off?
No, and there's a complete disconnect. And there's a complete disconnect from statistics. Like, they pick the statistics that they want to, like, where it looks good. And then it's not hard. It's like, look at the FBI statistics. Look at how many people, like, these mass shootings are fucking tragic. And it's a weird, odd, like, mass, like, public suicide where these people go out and and they're all on psychotropic drugs. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Those help us. Oh, you need these because of your, that feeling you get when something isn't quite right that everyone fucking has, called anxiety, of like,
I hate that word.
It's not proven.
It's so overused. It's like, I have anxiety. Like, no, you're just mentally weak. You haven't trained yourself to be an adult, so you want to use that as an excuse.
It pisses me off too, because you go to a therapist, says, "Oh, you have anxiety. That's your problem," and then it's a condition, and then what they have that where you change your behavior when someone tells you that's what's wrong with you,
right?
and
Well, you focus in on it.
and you're susceptible. Yeah, exactly. It's so there's all these factors where it used to be, and I'm sure that there's a small part of the population that can't function because they have way too much anxiety, and that's a problem. But
Due to a hormone imbalance, genetic deficiency, what have you.
PTSD, any kind of anything. So there's all that. But with that being said, you're like, oh, my anxiety is just too high today. Like, okay, well, just who isn't anxious? Who isn't? And like,
If you're not anxious, you're not living.
exactly. I mean, what is the phrase? I just heard it on The Sopranos. In life, you choose boredom or pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and obviously, like even depression's bad, and it's something that is a mental condition.
But it's also that thing that motivates you to be awesome. If you don't have depression, you can't have highs, I don't think.
I don't think it's true. I'm saying like it's so prone. Today's society is so prone to like, I think
Today's society doesn't know what real depression is. Let's be honest.
Well, here's the thing. If you're in the donor party and you're eating your shoes and you don't have a shirt on and it's -12 out, you're still going, but you have a goal and you have stuff to do and things to like. Now you can kind of get away with just laying around doing nothing. It's like, hey, let's smoke a bunch of weed and just briefly forget about our problems.
Yeah, let's live off the government
or our parents.
Try and stay in the basement as long as we can. Avoid any accountability and responsibility, and just exist.
I mean, that's what gets people in that trap, though. I mean, I do way better when I'm fucking busy, and I hate it. I hate how busy I am all the time. But like, I'm cooking food. I'm doing this. I'm staying on top of shit, because if you just stop and don't have anything to do, then it's like it just kind of compounds itself.
Yep.
But you have all these problems, and no one talks about like. But then it comes down to, oh, it's definitely the gun. Like, okay, well, we had machine guns in the 60s. You could buy an anti-tank rifle in the 60s delivered in a crate to your house
for $50.
$50, and that was it.
You could buy. I think you could buy.
Happened.
I think you can buy an MP40 for less than $20.
Oh my god.
Thompson submachine guns were a lot more expensive, but I think the
hell
MP40.
happened?
Well, I mean, we basically just took them from the Germans, so that we didn't have any cost. Those were bringbacks. For companies just to sell in the surplus market, because that was our war trophy. But yeah, we had machine guns from the 20s until 86. And how many mass shootings were there? There was one in a clock tower at a university with a dude that had a hunting gun.
Yeah.
That's the only one I remember.
Yeah, Charles Whitmore.
Mm-hmm.
There was one with some chick in the 70s at school. I think she brought a 22 and just started offing people. It was really weird.
So the availability of guns has actually gone down as far as the quote unquote assault weapon type, but mass shootings go up. I don't think that's a gun issue.
Well, there's
a bit of a culture issue.
There's literally more people.
Right.
So that's like anything that happens that randomly is going to happen more with more people.
We also have the most diverse group of people in the world.
Yeah, and they don't always get along, just saying. And then on top of that, we're just passing out weird psychotropic drugs that they just came out with this shit, Like
in the terms of history and what we know about medicine, it was like yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know what alcohol does in the body because we've been drinking alcohol since,
100 AD.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even earlier than
that. And I think same thing with cannabis. It's just not as with weed. We've genetically engineered. That's funny. I don't like anything GMO except for weed.
Right.
The THC levels. I mean, it's like 30% THC in some of this weed, when it used to be like 4 or 5. So, you hear people from like the 70s and they'll smoke a whole joint to themselves, and then they kind of feel pretty good. Now it's like a puff off that joint, and if you're predisposition to schizophrenia,
you're in the stratosphere.
You're off the deep end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have so many things that are different.
Well, that's the problem, is there's so many variables that no one's begin to break down, because people want quick and simple answers from their politicians. So politicians have their minds made up, given 0 variables and 0 research. So hey, knee-jerk reaction, that works great, right?
Not to mention that I can't remember what the number of people makes it a mass shooting, and
Like 3.
yeah, so 3 people, and that includes a lot of gang violence. So
Lots of gang violence.
and back when there wasn't 70 to 80% single motherhood rate in the African American community, there wasn't that much murder and infighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear some people like, well, it's because it's when Jim Crow and we were separate. I'm like, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's the nanny state. I think it's them just giving people things, and then they don't have to.
Well,
I don't think it was us being separate from black people. I think it literally was like they were on their own and they were separate. Now we're together, but they're not on their own.
Right. I mean, there's a whole lot of pride in the South during that time that you could be a black store owner and you had black clients and you had your own little community. Now, I mean, look at us. Like, what community do we have?
We don't have one.
There's no community for millennials. Like, it's the internet.
No, it is the internet. It's all gone. I mean, if we didn't have the internet, I mean, we obviously wouldn't be doing this podcast, but we'd be out. It's Saturday night. We'd probably be out doing something in a group or like some kind of lodge, or
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't be so fucking pessimistic and have the ability to look up absolutely everything all the time. So we
Right.
wouldn't be so worried about being right, or like I guess that's the thing with, like, I get pissed off at people, so I just don't hang out with them after a while. And that's what alcohol's nice for, because you can just lubricate the social lubricant of keeping society from hating each other enough to reproduce. But society as a community, that's fucking gone.
Yeah,
That's
it's
gone.
gonzo. You can't have a fraternity. You can't have a lodge. You can't. There's no sewing
We should start a
circles.
fraternity.
Yeah, last time that happened, Gavin McInnes got people jailed.
Well, he did it the gay way.
Yeah.
We won't do it the gay way.
No, we're not. I mean, he called it the Proud Boys. Like, there's literally pride was in the name. It was pretty gay.
Let's ultimate lion bear cougars
Mad Bear Pig.
with holding machine guns.
Yeah, it's the problem. The problems are compiling. There's more people. There's more variables. It's not something that's going to get solved tomorrow, much less 10 years from now. And instead of addressing these issues, having open communication with people we disagree with, it seems like in the age of technology, there's less communication and more isolation. There's more echo chambers being formed. I mean, look at Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter ever, and you can see it everywhere on the internet because people take screen caps. And I actually have a big problem with memes because they oversimplify complicated issues and try and cause a real simple solution and humor. And it's not a healthy way to communicate. It's very hard to have a conversation with someone via text regardless, because there's a lot of bias that is being assumed rather than context clues being read and understood person to person. Like I said on a couple live streams ago on the Mike Papaquillo YouTube channel, it's very, very troublesome to see people growing apart on very, very simple issues that could have been a conversation only because it was over text. And for whatever reason, now it's 2020, and we've forgotten how to speak to one another. There's so much passive aggression on the internet, and there's so many things assumed and oversimplified instead of having groups of people come together to actually try and work things out. It's just isolation.
Well, here's a good example. If you go over to someone's house, it's now assumed that you text them as soon as you get there, and
Instead of just knocking on the door.
yeah. So you roll up to the place, you sit in your car, and you text them, and then when you get a response saying, "Hey, come on in," then you walk in.
Right.
When not that long ago, you'd walk into someone's house. And
There's something wrong with my microphone.
no, there's nothing wrong with your microphone. It does this for some reason halfway
Oh.
through. Remember the audio? It sounds fine
yeah.
afterwards.
Okay, anyway, going to someone's house.
Yeah, you just walk into someone's house, and I mean, how comfortable you are with your just being able to walk into someone's house, or like just having a face-to-face conversation. I mean, I fucking hate getting phone calls. And,
Really?
Oh yeah, I hate it. I don't want to talk to you because it's. I want to talk to you face to face. I don't want to talk to you over the phone.
True.
I
Yeah,
hate-
I'll agree with that.
Like, I mean, if I'm in a long car ride, fucking go for it. But every time I'm on the phone with somebody in the car, I'm screaming. And
Yeah.
pretty much the same I am doing right now. But yeah, we've definitely lost. There's no community anymore, and there's no support. And I mean, that's what I think church is really good at, is that community. But it's just kind of based on that Kool-Aid drinking.
Yeah, it's still groupthink, and it makes me feel gross. Not to mention the voodoo aspect.
It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It's just really boring to me. Like,
Well,
really
yeah,
boring.
also that, but it's when it's groupthink compounded on everyone. It's not just groupthink, but unquestionable groupthink, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at like worship music.
But
Why does it have to be? Why do you have to say something about God in every verse? And why does the story in the song have to be? Why do they have to be words? So you have to have words so people know it's about God. Why can't the beauty of music itself be a testament to how amazing the creation of the universe is?
That's a really good point.
Like, that's all you need. Like, oh, isn't it amazing that like harmonies exist, or how just you can hear multiple noises at once? That's a weird thing to think about.
Well, I mean, they all they exist in something that we call, well, I mean, melody is a little more simple way of putting it, but the, I don't know, amalgamation of all the sounds that come together to make one sound that you recognize. I mean, there's always that one sound on the radio that, like, I hear Gene Krupa sing, and I want to dance. I don't know why. It's just, there's something about that song in particular that, between the brass instruments, Gene Krupa being awesome on the drums, and whatever the cadence of that music, I want to dance. Now, I listen to rap music, and I want to isolate myself from the world because it's so garbage, but, that's a story for a different day. But like you said, why can't we just accept music for being whatever you want to tie it to? Why do you have to be so blunt and obvious about it? It's not beautiful when you try and force it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why a lot of Christian music is terrible, because it's like it's through a very narrow lens that you have to pass, and it's like, so only thing you get out of it is very processed and
right.
like,
yeah.
Like,
It's inorganic.
I'm sure that, like, I like old hymns. I think that they're cool.
Yeah.
Because they're
Gregorian chants too. Gregorian chants were they're pretty intense.
But I just don't. But the community aspect, yeah, I don't understand how. I mean, what if we wanted to be in a community right now? If you wanted to be in a community, something
USPSA.
There's USPSA, but like the whole idea of community, it's not just the one thing. It's
right. You would like do other things other than shooting events.
Like, oh, we're doing a potluck to raise money for the range,
right?
Or, I mean, even I do jujitsu, and I don't hang out with any of those guys.
That's one of the weirdest things about work is there's in the work environment, like there's always groups of people at work that hang out with each other outside of work, and that's the other side of the aspect that I've always found really odd, that you'd want to hang out with people in work. So maybe I'm being a bit of a hypocrite in thinking that way, but I also don't relate with hardly anybody that we work with.
I mean, I think you particularly are going to have a hard time finding people to relate with specifically.
I figured that out in the last 20 years. Thank you.
I can relate to people, but there's a point where I just get rubbed the wrong way by people's tendencies to do certain things. Like, I can't. Or
tendencies to not do things.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people, like, if I tell them I'm not going to drink tonight, and it's like I just stabbed their mother, and you're like, dude, like, I have a can in my hand. The only difference is it doesn't have alcohol in it, and I act
groupthink.
And I mean, yeah, exactly.
Gross groupthink.
I think, I mean, obviously I get tired faster if I'm not drinking, but I think I can still have fun with people that are drinking, and but not that I necessarily want to. Or like some people just, they just irk me with things that they do. I don't know how to describe it, and like I like to dick around. So if you're down for just ripping on each other and making stupid jokes and not taking things too seriously, then I can.
That is
deal.
one big factor that people who are not good thinkers do a lot, is that they just take shit so personally that, like, the clutching of the pearls response to when you say something is like, dude, it's a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. You're not that important. You don't need to get all tied up in something. And what anyone says,
Yeah.
that pisses me off most about people who are, especially are, how do I want to say this? Not great at anything.
Yeah.
You know, they're not ordinary. They're extraordinary. They're not extraordinary. They're extra. They're basic bitches, is what they are.
Gotcha.
I don't know how hard I can cram that down your throat intellectually, but that's what I'm sticking with. Basic bitches.
That's
Whamming.
I saw a video. I didn't watch it, but it was like most of the population are pretty basic people.
Uh-huh.
And it's just hard for me to conceptualize, like,
I only relate to old people because they have the experience that I want to learn from.
yeah, and they'll listen too. They'll actually listen to what you say. That's pretty incredible.
And process it and offer feedback based on what they heard.
yeah,
What an extraordinary concept.
it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think that. Yeah,
Empathy, how does it work?
it doesn't. Not in today's environment, but
I don't think anyone has it.
it looks like that chicken's been simmering for 100 an hour, and don't tell me that's 19 minutes.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus, that's going to be the driest chicken I've ever eaten.
Well, the Dry Chicken Podcast with Uncle Bugatti and Mike Papakilo.
That's right, baby.
We
Don't.
couldn't have ended it on such a sadder.
I put seasoning on it. But always remember to season your chicken and suck it up and suck my